Since then, I haven't seen or heard anything unusual, but thinking about those 3 events still makes me nervous and gives me a sinking feeling in my stomach. I keep telling myself there's no way something like a skinwalker could exist in my quiet coastal town, but a small part of me still wonders if maybe it could. This is my ex's story from the Haunted Goth 07. First, I want to warn that this story includes some heavy topics like domestic violence, assault, and some mistreatment of animals. I'm sorry it's so long, but I need to share a lot of details for it to make sense. I'm a 22-year-old woman now, but when I was 19, I had just ended a 3-year relationship that covered my entire teenage years. Being young and inexperienced in dating, I jumped into dating apps quickly, and within a few weeks, I met my ex-boyfriend. First, he seemed nice. He had a steady job, liked my goth style, was willing to go out with me, and acted like a gentleman. I know that's basic, but for me, it was new and I liked it. He was 25 years old. Let's call him Jake. Things moved fast, and I went to Jake's place pretty early on. That's where the strange stuff began. I'm a spiritual person and have had many unexplainable experiences. My childhood home was haunted, though my mom would never admit it. So, I'm used to weird vibes, but when I stepped into Jake's house, I felt a strange, heavy energy. The place felt cold and unwelcoming. First, I thought it was just nerves, but that feeling didn't go away. Things would move around the house on their own, and I'd get blamed for losing stuff. Things ended up under couches or in weird spots like the dishwasher or behind counters. I thought maybe the dog was causing it, but that didn't explain how things got to some places. I noticed the hallway outside his bedroom was always colder than the rest of the house. It gave me a deep feeling of dread. I would rush past his room because it made me so uncomfortable. I'd see shadows or something that looked like a figure peeking around the doorway. When I was home alone, the dog wouldn't leave me alone either. She'd sit on me or beside me, growling or barking at nothing just outside the door, like she was protecting me. Whenever Jake saw the dog acting like this, he would hit her, grab her, or push her away, yelling at her to be quiet. But I never believed it was nothing. I told his mom about it once, and she said she thought Jake's grandparents were still in the house. She said she had seen some strange things too, and that they wouldn't hurt anyone. That made me feel better for a while. But later, things got a lot worse. I started having scary nightmares when I stayed there. I dreamed about harm coming to my niece or nephew and felt like I was being watched. I began having sleep paralysis regularly, something I hadn't experienced for years before this. As the abuse from Jake got worse, one night near the worst point, I was sleeping deeply when something grabbed me. It yanked me hard, leaving marks on my arm, like it was trying to pull me out of bed. I woke up terrified and crying. I woke Jake, but he yelled at me to go back to sleep and said I was being silly. After I calmed down, I tried to sleep again. About an hour later, I woke up and saw the most frightening sight. A very tall man standing by Jake's side of the bed. He was unusually tall, dressed in a suit with a bowler hat. His arms hung low, past his knees, and his fingers were long and thin. First, he just stared at me. Then he reached out to grab me. I scrambled back on the bed toward the wall, trying to escape. I could feel his fingers brush my arm as he came closer. I screamed and cried, but he kept moving closer. Jake woke up, turned on the light, and the figure disappeared. It felt like it was trying to drive me away from the bed, from the house. I felt like it wanted me gone. I kept the light on the rest of the night. Not long after, Jake sexually assaulted me. I eventually left, got a restraining order, and pressed charges that led to his conviction. It was a lot of trauma. I never saw that figure again. No nightmares, no dread, nothing. Our relationship lasted less than 6 months, but during that time, I faced intense abuse. Jake stopped me from seeing my family, threw things at me, drove in scary ways, wouldn't let me leave, gaslit me, tried to isolate me from friends, sexually assaulted me, and blackmailed me. After we broke up, he stalked and harassed me, refusing to leave me alone. That's some background on what kind of person Jake was. To this day, I don't have answers for what really happened, but I believe Jake was somehow linked to that dark presence. As time has passed, I feel maybe it wasn't trying to hurt me, but trying to push me away so I wouldn't suffer more. Maybe it thought scaring me was the only way to get me out, or maybe it was a sign of what my gut already knew. I stopped telling this story to people because it felt forced and fake. Over the years, I've only shared it with my partner and a few close friends. Since then, nothing strange or paranormal has happened to me. Not that I know of. Honestly, I'm not sure it was paranormal at all. Maybe it was more of a spiritual thing. Odd experiences in Wyoming from Maya. When I was young, I moved around a lot with my mom since my parents were separated. I have several stories, but I'll combine them into one since they happened close together. Warning: this story briefly mentions self-harm. When I lived with my mom in a very small, isolated town in Wyoming, which was basically made up of 2 gas stations, a church, a school, several bars, and some houses, I lived in a house I truly believe was haunted, or maybe still is. The house wasn't very big. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and an upstairs, plus a front and backyard. I lived there for nearly 2 years. During that time, I often got the usual creepy feeling of being watched, no matter where I was in the house. I've always been curious about the occult and paranormal stuff, and back then I played games related to ghosts and spirits. Over time, the feeling of being watched turned into feeling like I was being hunted. I'd see shadowy figures that mostly left me alone, just standing and staring, or I'd sometimes feel an icy cold hand lightly touch my shoulder or back. I thought these shadow figures didn't mean me harm. I usually ignored them, thinking if I didn't pay attention, they wouldn't bother me. But the activity got worse as I became more anxious. The feeling of being watched overwhelmed me. I started waking up with shallow, faint scratches on my sides, near my stomach, and on my arms. My dogs never slept with me, and I'd never had scratches like that before. I tried to explain it as me scratching myself in my sleep, but that didn't seem to make sense to my 15-year-old mind, since I'd never done that before. My younger brother, Kay, and my stepbrother, Jay, sometimes saw the shadow people too, with Jay seeing them more often than Kay. This made me believe I wasn't just imagining things when I saw these dark shapes out of the corner of my eye, or sometimes straight on. One morning, I got up and went to my closet. Inside, there was a small door like something from a fairy tale that led to a tiny crawl space. When I opened it, I noticed strange marks and shallow carvings on the door, shapes and random letters that made no sense. I had no logical explanation because I didn't have anything sharp to carve with except for scissors, and I didn't have those out because of past self-harm. Couldn't have been Kay or Jay either because the door creaked when opened, and I always used a doorstop to keep it locked since the actual lock was on the outside, not the inside. Even if one of my siblings had done it, I would have heard the door open and the doorstop move. Plus, I never sleepwalked. Another time, I was outside in the front yard with Jay. My sister, Elle, and Kay had already gone to bed. The front and backyard were separated by a weak chain-link fence about 3 to 4 feet tall. I froze when I saw, near the back corner of the house across from our shed, 3 figures. They looked like men leaning out, trying to watch me without being noticed. I pointed them out to Jay, asking if he saw the same thing. The figures were dark shadows with big white-yellow eyes. Jay said he saw them too. Feeling scared, we ran inside quickly. I often saw these shadowy figures outside the windows, like they were spying on us through the glass. I truly believe I'm a 29-year-old woman living in a small coastal town in southern Oregon. I share a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate and her gray cat. Our town has a beach on one side and low hills on the other, along with a few small river valleys. We live right in the middle of town, just off a busy avenue behind an old rundown motel. That motel has a dark history. It's said to have been a stop for a serial killer back in the late 70s who was rumored to keep body parts in the bathtub. Between the motel and our building, there's a locked-up, abandoned lot we jokingly call Creepy Lot. It's full of tall, wild bushes and a few small trees. Lots of wild animals and maybe even some homeless people live there without anyone really noticing. There's also a narrow path running from that lot, winding behind our building and the one behind us. It passes right by our bathroom window, which is about 6.5 feet off the ground, too high for anyone to peek inside from either side. Still, every time I walk past Creepy Lot, especially at night, I get a really bad feeling. I'm not someone who usually uses marijuana, but once I accepted a gummy from my roommate after a long weekend when my muscles were sore. That night, I had a dream about a skinwalker stalking me. I woke up with my heart racing, but I told myself it was just the effects of the edible. I never dreamed about skinwalkers again after that. One night, my roommate went out of town, so her cat slept in my room with me. She was curled up peacefully, but around 4 a.m., a loud beeping woke us both up. It sounded exactly like a smoke alarm going off. I was hot and sweaty, and the noise made me think maybe there was a fire. I'd just woken up and was still trying to understand what was happening, but the alarm suddenly stopped on its own. I got out of bed to check everything, expecting to see smoke or flames outside. When I looked out the window into the night, I didn't see anything unusual, except a pure white cat staring fixedly into Creepy Lot. I'd never seen this cat before. Something about it made me freeze. The cat didn't move at all, just stared. I watched it for a while. Then my roommate's cat came over to me and rolled onto his back at my feet. I looked down to pet him, and when I looked back up, the white cat was gone. I waited a little longer, hoping it would come back, but it never did. After I confirmed our building wasn't on fire, I went back to bed. I had woken up hot and sweaty before, but that night, no matter what, I couldn't get warm again. It didn't make much sense to me. The next day, I felt uneasy all day long. I haven't heard phantom smoke alarms or seen strange cats since, but I did notice the fence around Creepy Lot bent down low enough for a cat, or maybe a skinny person, to crawl under. About a month later, at around 8:30 p.m., I told my roommate I was going to shower in case she needed to use the bathroom before I locked it up. I left the bathroom door unlocked so the cats could go to their litter box if they needed to. While washing my hair, I heard a knock I thought was on the bathroom door. I pulled back the curtain and asked who it was. I heard a weird version of my roommate's voice say, "It's me." We often joked around with funny voices, so I didn't think much of it. I opened the door expecting to see the cat, but no one was there. I stood in the steamy bathroom for a moment, confused and a little scared. I closed the door with my heart racing. When I came out, I asked my roommate if she had knocked. She said no and was still sitting in the same spot she was before I went to shower. I believed her. That night, I went to bed feeling strange, and the next morning I was horrified realizing the knock might have come from the bathroom window, not the door. The last incident happened a few weeks after that, about 2 weeks ago. As I lay down to sleep, I heard someone shouting far away, calling for help, repeating, "Someone please help me." The voice didn't sound quite right. I listened as it seemed to get closer, until it sounded like it was right at the corner near my house. I looked out the window but saw nothing. The noise kept going. Neighbors came outside to check on the sound. I called 911 to report a person in trouble and waited. Eventually, the neighbors went back inside, but I stayed watching. After some time, I saw something or someone cross under a streetlight far away. Their movements were strange, maybe limping, but they were too far to see clearly or tell how tall they were. That was enough for me. I decided I'd done my part for the night. I turned off the lights and tried to sleep, but stayed alert, listening for any more sounds. Beyond that eerie door or sad memorial, feel free to share your spooky stories of the unexplained at darktales.net, and check out my other shows at hauntedpod.com for more chilling entertainment. Now, let's dive into the story of the crawl space creature. From Lucas. When I was younger, about 11 years old, my parents arranged a 4-night trip to a wooden cabin somewhere in Oregon with my grandma. What happened there left a mark on me forever. I felt the cool breeze on my face as I opened the car door. I looked around at the thick forest surrounding us and started walking toward the cabin door. My mom called after me, "Lucas, why don't you head up to your room and unpack?" When I pushed the cabin door open, I was startled by the loud creak it made. Inside was a large room with a couch facing a flat-screen TV. A kitchen was connected to the living room with a counter lined by tall chairs. I climbed the stairs, past the bathroom, and reached the hallway. When I opened the bedroom door where I was supposed to stay, I screamed. Right in the middle of the floor lay a dead rat, with its insides spread messily around it, like something had been gnawing on it. I ran down the stairs and saw my dad pushing Grandma's wheelchair inside. "Dad, there's a dead rat in my room," I shouted. He said, "You're old enough. Why don't you just clean it up?" So I did. I ended up using almost an entire roll of paper towels and a can of disinfectant to clean it all up. Around 6 p.m., my mom made some mac and cheese with sliced hot dogs, which was my favorite back then. I was walking toward the couch where Grandma was sitting with her bowl when I noticed something. There was a trap door in the middle of the floor. I hadn't seen it before. "Mom, what's this door for?" I asked. She said, "Probably for crawl space access. They use it to prevent floods from getting into the cabin." I sat down on the couch and turned on the TV, satisfied with her answer. I remember how much I enjoyed the meal that night. It was really good. Soon it was time for bed. Dad had told me on the way about all the fishing and kayaking we'd do, and I was excited. I got into bed and fell asleep quickly. The warmth of the blankets made it easier. Around midnight, I think I woke up to the sound of something shuffling. I stepped out of my room, leaving the door a little open. Peering into the dusty hallway, I saw nothing but shadows moving on the walls from the moonlight. The shuffling kept going, so I slowly crept downstairs to the living room. I pressed my ear against the floor and, as I thought, the sounds were coming from under the floorboards. Fear hit me hard. The thought of something moving beneath the floor terrified me. But being foolish, I thought I could handle whatever it was. I grabbed my flashlight and decided to check it out. I opened the trapdoor. About a dozen rats scattered away. I climbed down into the cold, damp space. It was huge, like a maze. I crawled deeper. I don't know if I was being brave or just dumb, but I kept going until I reached a dim corner about 10 feet ahead. Suddenly, I saw movement. I shone my flashlight there and saw a shape. A shadowy figure with long arms and pale skin, hunched in the corner. Its eyes reflected white in my flashlight's beam. I froze. The thing let out a screech. I think the light hurt its eyes and scared it. You better believe I turned and crawled as fast as I could back toward the trapdoor. I looked back once. The figure was following me, using long fingers to grip the support beams to move faster. I guessed it had been feeding on the rats, and the dead rat in my room was probably its leftovers. If it could do that to a rat, I was terrified to think what it might do to me. I started to feel lost. It was taking too long to get back, and the thing was gaining on me. I thought I was done for until I finally saw the trapdoor. I lunged for it, pushed it open, and scrambled out. I felt something grab at me and smelled hot breath. I kicked and slammed the trapdoor shut. Something clawed and pushed on the other side, so I threw my weight on top of the door. After a while, the thrashing stopped. I ran upstairs to my parents' room and started pounding on the door, shouting for them. My dad, still sleepy, opened it and asked what was wrong. I tried to explain, "Dad, there's something trying to get into the cabin," but he didn't believe me. I told him it wasn't a nightmare, but it didn't matter. He sent me back to my room where I couldn't sleep a wink. The next morning, I ate breakfast and went out with Dad to the lake. He set up the fishing rod and we got on a small boat. I didn't catch any fish, but I enjoyed spending time with him. Anything to distract me from the previous night. As evening came, we roasted marshmallows, something Grandma and Mom loved. Mom told me she used to go camping with Grandma when she was a kid. The marshmallows I made were perfect, soft and gooey. It was bedtime again, but I was scared of that creature hurting my family. I thought I wouldn't fall asleep, but somehow I did. At some point, I woke up to the sound of the trapdoor creaking open. My heart sank with dread. Then I heard cupboards slamming in the kitchen. Was it looking for me? I started to panic. The floorboards creaked as something walked down the hallway. Was my door locked? Could it open doors? It had opened the trapdoor before. Hundreds of questions raced through my mind. Then the door handle jigged. I held my breath. Suddenly, all sounds stopped. Then another door opened. My dad shouted, "Get out of here!" There was a horrible screech and the sound of glass breaking. I rushed to my door and saw my dad standing outside, holding his fishing knife. I looked to the right and saw a trail of blood leading to a broken window. That night, we left the cabin and never returned. This is the only strange experience I ever had, and it happened during my sophomore year in high school in 1984. I'm sharing this story about my friends Liam and Drew, using just their initials to keep their real names private. It was Halloween evening. We had just finished our sophomore football practice. The three of us were around 14 or 15, typical suburban kids from northern New Jersey. At that age, we were kind of old to be trick-or-treating, but we still wanted to grab some free candy. So we wandered around a few houses wearing our football jerseys. Liam's home life was a little different from ours. He lived with barely any adult supervision, had longer hair, and was popular with girls. He seemed like he didn't care about much, while Drew and I came from more normal suburban families with rules and homework. Not that I was great at school anyway. Liam definitely seemed cooler than the two of us, always rocking a leather jacket and being allowed to smoke inside his house. He was kind of our leader. Around that time, we had all started getting into heavy metal music. Bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Ozzy Osbourne, and Dio. We loved all the dark themes and thought it made us look tough. We even tried playing Led Zeppelin records backward, searching for hidden satanic messages. If you grew up in the 80s, you know what I mean. Liam had made a metal cross in shop class and sometimes wore it upside down. He called himself Johnny Blade after a Black Sabbath song. That night, after gathering candy, we ended up in Drew's house, in his parents' bedroom for some reason. It was the only and last time I was ever in that room. The bedroom was right off the living room on the first floor of their Cape-style house. We were sorting through our candy when suddenly, the radio on the nightstand turned on by itself. We all laughed it off and went back to sorting candy. Then the lights started flickering. Liam took it as a sign, and since it was Halloween, he decided to bless our candy using his makeshift cross from shop class, held upside down. Drew and I were sitting on the bed while Liam stood by the clock, holding the cross. He said some words like, "I bless you in the name of..." I don't even want to say it, even after all these years. Then he moved toward the light, still holding the cross upside down. He noticed a crucifix hanging over the bedroom door and headed there. As he started speaking the words, I swear I saw him lift off the floor about 3 feet and get thrown backward onto the bed. He landed more than 5 feet away, right on top of Drew and me. I was terrified and bolted into the hallway. The lights and radio were going crazy, making the whole house feel eerie. I looked back and saw Liam struggling, like he was choking on his own tongue. Drew was on top of him, trying to pull Liam's fingers out of his mouth to stop him from suffocating, but Liam kept gagging. I was frozen, inching closer to the room again. Liam's eyes were rolling back, and the lights and radio were still acting wild. Then suddenly, everything stopped. A minute later, Drew was trying to help Liam explain what had just happened. While I nervously moved in and out of the room, we all ran out of the house and onto the front lawn. Liam was speechless and didn't say a word. From the lawn, we could still see the bedroom window with the lights flickering and the radio making noise inside. Drew was freaking out. It was his parents' room, and I guess he was scared of the trouble they might get into. After about 10 minutes, everything finally calmed down. Liam looked shaken, of course, and still silent. Maybe he was just in shock. We were all scared out of our minds. Eventually, we had to call Liam's mom to come get him. I remember how scared he looked when he got in the car. He couldn't even look at us. That night, I cried in my bed because I was too scared to fall asleep. Every little sound made me jump. The next morning, I waited for Liam outside school. I could tell he didn't want to talk about what happened. Trying to lighten the mood, I joked about him doing something wild, like setting our football coach's car on fire. He laughed, and that helped all of us feel a little better. A few weeks later, Liam was kicked off the football team for reasons I can't remember, and over time, the three of us drifted apart like kids often do. Drew and I stayed friendly but ended up moving in different social circles by the time we graduated. We never really talked about that Halloween night again. Drew and I did tell a few people the story, but most thought it was just made up. And since Liam acted like this Johnny Blade character, it sounded even more unbelievable.